Morning. Welcome back, everybody, to beautiful Fall Creek Falls. Today's full commission, and we are happy to be here today. My name is Angie Box. I have the privilege of serving as chair of this commission. This time, I've asked Commissioner Butt to lead us in invocation and the pledge.
Stand, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's pray. Our God, Father in heaven, we thank thee for this beautiful day to enjoy. Father, we recognize thee, recognize thy name above every name upon this earth. Father, we're thankful for the opportunity together to be about the business of the agency and manage wildlife. Father, we pray for guidance and wisdom. We're thankful for all who are present here. We will bless them and their families. Give us all safe travel back to our homes and places. Father, especially now, we will thank thee for the privilege of life. Help us always to be thankful for that which you bless us with and never take it for granted. All this we ask and pray in God's most holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Butt. At this time, I'd like to welcome all of our guests and visitors. We have lots of people here. Glad y'all are here. We have Andrea White, American Canoe Association. Glad you're here. Clarence and Laura Dodd, faithful, committed guests. Thank y'all for being here. Yeah. Peter Churchborough, NRA. Where's Peter? I met you last night. Yes, glad you're here. We have several with the Wildlife Federation guests here. We have Ashley Toon, J.W. Worthen, Mike Butler, Rob Mathis, Candy Mathis, Taylor Martin. Where's Taylor? Okay, great. Glad to have y'all here. We appreciate the partnership with y'all too. Y'all do a great job. We appreciate that. Dave Holmes. Where's Dave? Okay, great. Thank you for being here. Clay Young with North American Caviar. Clay. Tony Sanders from Saudi Daisy, Tennessee, here and present. I'm glad to have you here. You've got Tom Gavin with you? Great. Thank you so much. If you don't know, Tony has an awesome outdoor show, Tony Sanders outdoor show that he has. If you can tune in, it's very early though, Saturday morning, 6 a.m. Yeah. Yes, which I have to do because it's early on Saturday, but I'm glad to have you here, Tony and Gavin. Okay. And with that, Ms. Danette, will you please call the roll?
Jimmy Granberry,
Here.
Tommy Woods,
Here.
Monty Ballou,
Here.
Stan Butt, Wally Childress,
Here.
Bill Cox, Chris Devaney,
Here.
Chip Saltzman, Steve Jones, Brian McLaren,
Here.
Kent Woods, Hank Wright, Angie Box.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Ms. Danette. Commissioners, you should have received a copy of the minutes from the August meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All right, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Are there any announcements from Executive Director? Do you have any announcements today?
Madam Chair, I do have one.
Okay.
I just want to thank the Region 3 staff for all the hard work to prepare for this meeting, and also want to thank Miss Debbie Hood. Miss Debbie may be online with us today, and Miss Debbie had a small surgery, so Miss Debbie, we're going to keep you in our prayers and just thank you and your staff. That's all, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Director Maxedon. Any announcements from the commissioners? And from the public? Okay, great. We're going to move into our presentations with Ms. Jenifer Wisniewski, Director of Marketing and Special Projects. Thank you.
Push the button. Good morning, everybody. I'm here today to talk about a very cool program that we started a couple of years ago. So we all know that we offer in-person hunter education classes for free, but the only option we had online was a pay-for hunter ed class. So the NRA developed this top-notch hunter education class that was online that they developed for any state to be able to use, that is completely free for the public. And 2 years ago, COVID was sort of a catalyst in us adopting that class because the public really, really wanted more hunter education classes. And we really, really, really weren't able to give those to them with the hunter education volunteer base that we had and all of the things surrounding COVID. So we were the 6th state in the country to adopt this completely free online NRA developed, who is the grandfather of hunter education, developed this great hunter ed course. So we've been doing that for 2 years now. And a wonderful part of that is our partner NRA is able to use those funds or use each person that we have to use match. And Peter is going to explain a little bit more about how that works. We have our friend Peter Churchborn here today, who's the director of hunting at the National Rifle Association nationwide. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. Well, without further ado, Peter, please come on up.
Thank you, Jenifer, for having me. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. Thank you to the commissioners and for all the great professionals of the agency that does such a great job managing the resource for your residents and our members as well. We appreciate everything you do. It's very important work. So, as Jenifer said, the NRA was the organization in 1949 that started hunter education. We built the first curriculum in 1949, and that was that curriculum that was used to train hunters in the United States for almost 26 years. There was a change in Pittman Robertson funding in the mid 70s that allowed state agencies to get funds to build their own hunter education departments. So our product wasn't needed so much anymore. So we turned over all of our records to the states and they did hunter education in person for a long time. Well, we got into doing some online curriculum building for some other things that we do at the NRA. And I said, why don't we get back into the hunter education business? Because there was for-profit companies that were selling it. We weren't happy with the technology, and we were investing in a new learning management system that was state of the art. It was the Ferrari of learning management systems. So we went and built the best in class online hunter education program that we wanted to make sure was given away for free because we feel hunter ed should be free. And on top of that, while we built the course, we didn't want it to be a negative to the state. I've worked in the industry a long time. I understand how money flows back to the states, and the majority of hunter education dollars that you receive your match with in the state is a volunteer hour. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, under the subgroup of WISFR, has an algorithm where they decide what a volunteer hour is worth in every state. It's a little bit different in Kentucky than it is in Tennessee versus Virginia. But all the volunteer hours are rolled up into a dollar amount, and that becomes your base 25% match. Pittman Robertson dollars then kicks in 3 times, and that's how you get your money back. So we didn't want all of a sudden to flood the market with a free course. Everyone takes our course and the state not get any money. So we lobbied the Interior Department to look at our course, because the terminology in the statute is in-kind donation. Well, we were giving this away, so the value of our course, of what the for-profit vendor charges, is the value of what you will get back for every student that takes our course. So in the last, in 2021, we had just about 5,000 students take your course, which was a value of $173,000, which the state will get back $520,000 of Pittman and Robertson dollars for the value of the students taking our course. So we're so happy that you are partnering with us. We were hoping that every state in the United States will ultimately take this so we can offer free, awesome online hunter education to every American. So thank you very much. I love being here.
Thank you, Peter. And we have a check to do a photo op, Lee.
How are we going to do that?
If you'll come up. Upside down.
Thank you so much, Peter. All right. Next, I'd like to call on Joe Benedict, Chief of Wildlife, please. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Chairman. Today, it's my distinct pleasure to share with you the 2022 Wildlife Biologist of the Year and Wildlife Technician of the Year. I'll ask them to come up when I call their name. And maybe, Lee, we could take one photo at the end. It might save the commission some up and down there. These two folks were nominated by their peers and their supervisors for both of these awards. And so I'll get right into it. The 2022 Wildlife and Forestry Division Wildlife Technician of the Year is Steve Massengale. We'll ask him to come up. If he wants to bring his wife up, he can come up as well. Steve works at Artelico Lake WMA here in Region 3. He's been there a long time. He's a leader in that work unit. His supervisor is Mitch Kluer, who's not able to be here today. But Mitch's supervisor, Clint Smith, is here to celebrate with us. I'll read you a little blurb about some things that Steve's involved with, and this doesn't even scratch the surface. Steve operates on a superior performance level daily. He continuously goes above and beyond his job duties. He shows up to work with a positive attitude and motivates others to work hard and encourages a positive work environment. Steve not only works well with coworkers within the agency, but maintains an excellent working relationship with partners, U.S. Forest Service, TVA, state parks, Division of Forestry, and many others. He strives to keep an open line of communication with his supervisors, agency staff, and partners. And on a personal note, Steve frequently pulls me aside at meetings when I see him. He tells me the hard truth in love. He tells me what folks are thinking about, what's on their mind. So in a way, he's a spokesperson for our field staff here in Region 3. So I really appreciate that about Steve. His positive attitude and communication skills, his knowledge, and his work ethic make him the 2022 Statewide Wildlife Technician of the Year. Congratulations. Thank you, Steve. Hang there. We'll do the biologist and then have Lee come up, wherever Lee is. So moving on to the Statewide Wildlife Biologist of the Year. I'll call up the recently retired Bill Smith. His supervisor is Joe Elkins, the Region 4 WMA coordinator, and then John Mike, our regional program manager, is here as well. You all know Bill Smith. He's a character. Managing for quail is one of the toughest jobs that we have. For any wildlife manager here in Tennessee is no different. He manages upland portions of a waterfowl refuge for quail for over 25 years. He's also maintained the highest bird per acre, number of birds per acre, probably on all of the state lands within Tennessee. Kiker Bottoms was named our agency's quail demonstration area because of Bill's efforts and accomplishments for managing that property. Bill continually incorporates the latest research into his habitat management. He's been a lifelong learner. He frequently visits other WMAs to see what they're doing, what techniques they're using on their habitat, including out-of-state visits when he can. He wants to see what other folks are doing, what's working for them, and he brings it back and tries it on his WMA. His WMAs are close to Knoxville, very large, obviously, population right there. And so he interacts and engages with the public frequently. He's worked with local media and civic groups to host a sunflower festival. Y'all may have seen some Facebook posts and things on that. He's positively impacted thousands of people during those events and sharing information on conservation, wildlife management, hunting. Bill has used volunteers and interns from UT to help with field work, and he's mentored many of our young wildlife professionals that work for the agency and others that have gone on beyond Tennessee. One thing I'll miss most about Bill is his positive energy and enthusiasm. And he's one of those, we call him a habitat preacher, right? We have got passionate employees. Bill is probably the most passionate employee. He thinks we can always do more and do better. And why can't we do this? Why can't you do this? I'm doing this. And I'm scraping together money and people here and there. So I'm going to miss Bill, the habitat preacher. A lot of our staff will miss him. The folks that are coming through UT and wildlife programs will miss him, even though they've never met him. So we recognize Bill today as a 2022 statewide wildlife biologist of the year. And also, you hear this every year, but he will be submitted as the agency's nomination for the SIAFA, the Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies Biologist of the Year. So it's not a national competition, but it's a huge number of Southeastern states that he will compete for that award as well. So thank you, Bill, and congratulations.
Steve and I wondering where our big check is.
We can use this check. We'll have to hold it backwards, though.
I'm just thankful they cut trees to make this.
Lee, do you want us all together or do you want two separate? Together. Okay. You want us in front, in back? In front.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you all. And Joe, that was a perfect description of Bill. That's awesome. Very enthusiastic. So thank you all for your service. Dedication for sure. Okay, I'd like to call, let's see, moving on to boating and law. We'll call Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Moates up to the front, please. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you. Every year, we'd like to recognize an officer who has done outstanding work in boating safety and marine law enforcement. So the selection for Boating Officer of the Year for calendar year 2021 is David Holt. David, if you'd like to come up. David is assigned to work Law Enforcement District 32 as a full-time boating officer. District 32 is in Region 3 and contains Chickamauga Lake, Watts Bar Lake, Nickajack Lake, Hiwassee and Ocoee Rivers, and Parksville Lake. These bodies of water are popular tourist destinations for fishermen and recreational boaters. David is supervised by Captain Jeff Bishop, Lieutenant Brandon Selvog, who are here with us today. Officer Holt excelled in the area of law enforcement. He inspected 314 recreational vessels for compliance, issued 34 citations and 31 warnings for law violations. He administered 7 field sobriety tests to boat operators and removed 5 impaired operators from public waters. Additionally, Officer Holt helped 4 boaters on the water that required some type of assistance. Officer Holt was also the lead investigator on 24 boating incidents, resulting in 6 criminal charges, and he assisted officers on 5 other incidents. In the area of education and outreach, David taught 7 boater education classes, certifying 53 students as safe boaters in Tennessee. Additionally, he provided 19 public programs, 3 television interviews, and participated in a Coast Guard port security exercise planning meeting. Officer Holt was also called out several times to assist with search and rescue on local waterways and investigate abandoned vessel reports. On one call in particular, David and 2 other officers performed a rescue on a man who had fallen into the water at a local marina. These officers were recognized by the Chattanooga Fire Department for their life-saving efforts. David also provided enforcement for 9 marine events in District 32. David's dedication to boating law enforcement, the public, and his fellow officers has made him a valuable asset to District 32 and to Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. So, David, congratulations. You want to have a slide?
Yeah, hey, you need to get your wife. She probably needs this better, more than you. She deserves it more than you. I'm just
You got
saying. We'll have to step out in front of the
Yeah.
podium. In front of the podium. Okay. Let's go out. David in front.
Front center.
Director.
Thank you, Lee.
Hey, David. Here, take that with you.
All right. Thank you so much. Congratulations. All right. Back to Lieutenant Glenn Moates
Yes.
for the update. Thank you.
I believe I have a slide. Yes, okay. So last meeting, the commission passed a rule to establish a no-wake zone on Fort Loudoun Reservoir near the Little River. And we were given direction to work with the local community to establish the best location for the buoys to mark that particular zone. What you see on the slide is the recommended placement of the buoys that we've come up with. So with the commission's approval, we'll move forward in getting this done.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Any discussion? Yeah. Any discussion with the commissioners or questions? All right. Thank you so much for the extra effort on that and the information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion from the public? Stan?
Colonel,
Okay.
the input that was requested from the residents, from the landowners and those that had the docks on extended out, what was the comments from them about that, please?
I believe we had 25 responses. Well, we were sent out, an email was sent out with 2 different photographs of 2 different slides. And I think 18 or 19 wanted or recommended this right here. There were 3 or 4 that wanted the whole channel zone. But it was overwhelming majority of the residents approved this particular slide.
Okay. So in the future, you know, if this doesn't turn out to be satisfactory, we have the option of going back and reviewing this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission or the public? Okay. Hearing none, that concludes it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to a rulemaking hearing. I need to call Ms. Stephanie Karns. Oh, yeah, Stephanie Karns for the elk presentation. Yeah, you come up first.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Just so you know, we did talk with licensing and also checked in on the changes to the elk drawing. So we are working towards moving the application period to a 4-week period during February, and then notifications would be happening to the successful elk quota members or permittees in March. So thank you for that suggestion. We'll get working on that. It's a great one. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think the people that have called me will be very happy.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure that we do really extensive public outreach, both on social media and the traditional media outlets, to make sure that the public is aware of this.
And the 15 tab still part of the raffle, so that will need to be communicated as well.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that recommendation. Are we ready to move on to the rule?
Is there any other comments or questions on the elk? Okay. Great. We'll move on to the rulemaking hearing. This is a rulemaking hearing of the Fish and Wildlife Commission to consider amending the following promulgated rule. Chapter number 1660-01-34, Rules and Regulations for Chronic Wasting Disease. The order of proceeding will be as follows. Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency will present information relative to the proposed rule change. Commission members will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comment on the proposed rule. Once the commission members have had the opportunity to speak, members of the public will be permitted to ask questions or provide comment. All parties should identify themselves before speaking. As chair, I reserve the right to limit comments and discussion, especially in cases of repetition. Now I'll call Stephanie Karns back up.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you, commissioners. We're here asking for changes regarding a CWD management zone. And this was originally filed on the 28th of July, and we're requesting amendments to that filing. There are printed copies of the rule and the amendments that are requested. They're available here. If anyone would like a copy, we'd be happy to hand them out. Could you just raise your hand if you'd like a copy? We have plenty available. So there's one more over that direction there. We're happy to hand them out. We have enough for everyone. So, and they'll be available also after the meeting if you have any questions. So just a quick overview. Where is that? I was fighting with this thing yesterday. We'll see if I do any better today. So the purpose is simply to simplify the regulations and ensure responsible carcass disposal. The short summary is we are requesting to establish a CWD management zone west of the Tennessee River and adjacent positive counties that are directly contiguous to positive counties. And then within that zone, carcass movement would be unregulated, and feeding and bait placement of that would be all prohibited. It would go into effect next hunting season, not this hunting season. Just a reminder that the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies has developed carcass transport recommendations. Their best management practices say that in order to stop the movement of prions across the landscape, we should simplify carcass importation laws, reduce confusion for hunters, and also minimize inconsistencies in the regulations with other states and provinces. Now, it's a pretty complex map when you look at what we're dealing with here. I want you first to focus on sort of the north central U.S. In the area around Colorado, Montana, and Wyoming, and I'm going to show you what their regulations are saying. You can see from this map that this is a widely dispersed distribution of chronic wasting disease, where it's been detected both in captive and wild populations. The regulations that these three states have put into effect are very broad and ensure responsible disposal. Basically, their recommendations are very simple. Place any potentially infected carcasses, tissues in a landfill, preferably double bagged, or in the case of Wyoming, in an approved incinerator. It's very simple, but I want you to remember this is a wide distribution affecting most of those states and contiguous states. When we look in our area down in the southeast, we have very different regulations. And not only are they different, but they're pretty confusing and really quite complex. This is just an example of what Arkansas's website looks like, what Mississippi's looks like, Missouri, and here's Tennessee, what our current regulations are. So pretty complex, pretty confusing, very bright. The intention here is to simplify these regulations. So we originally filed a notice of rulemaking hearing in July, and it created a CWD management zone, and the intent was to allow unrestricted carcass movement within that management zone. And you can see on this map what counties were included, everything west of the river, including the entirety of Hardin County, because it is bisected by the Tennessee River. For clarity, I keep saying the river, I mean the Tennessee River. So, and explicitly allows transport and export by a permitted waste management company, TWRA staff, or TWRA contractors for the purpose of disposal. And we have 3 proposed amendments to that rule, that filing. And the changes are simply for clarification and simplification. They aren't substantive changes. So again, we have added Wayne County to the CWD Management Zone 1 because it is contiguous with Hardin County, and it's also high risk because of the proximity of the positive in Alabama. So we would like to add Wayne County to the CWD Management Zone. And we would also like to add language for contiguous counties and also language for future detections. Again, this is simply to clarify the original intent. The amendments are to clarify the original rule and simplify it a bit and make it evergreen. So I'm sure that no one really wants to read the verbiage up on the screen. I'm including these slides just for reference. So I'm going through these fairly quickly, but we can go back through these if there's questions. But just for reference, let's see, the CWD Management Zone 1 consists of the counties in that map that I just showed you. Then if any member of the family survey tests positive and it's contiguous with any given CWD management zone, then that county automatically becomes part of the adjacent CWD management zone. And if a survey tests positive in a county that is not contiguous with a management zone, we may create an additional CWD management zone. Now that may seem vague, and it's not intentionally vague. It is intended to allow us flexibility to manage the disease at a biological level. We can't anticipate where future detections will be, but we need to make sure that we have the ability to establish an appropriate CWD management zone that's associated with biological parameters, geographic barriers, and not simply anticipating administrative boundaries. And then finally, we're including a section that we will maintain and publish a map of any CWD management zones in the state. The same carcass parts that are approved for movement remain the same. Paragraph 3 identifies simply that TWRA or any party we contract with or any permitted waste management company may move and dispose of cervid carcass parts for disposal and testing. Feeding there's no changes to feeding restrictions. The only change in this section is referencing a CWD management zone. So this is again a summary. You've just seen this, but the CWD Management Zone 1 would be west of the river, including Hardin and Wayne County entirety, and adding that language for contiguous counties and future detections in non-contiguous counties. Just a little reminder, what we're trying to apply the carcass laws, carcass movement laws, and also try and be consistent with other states. So we recommend the passage of 1660-0134, Rules and Regulations for Chronic Wasting Disease as amended.
Stephanie, will you clarify on the red line and the green line and what's the packet on the rules been handed out?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that opportunity to clarify. What you have in front of you is the original rule as it was passed when we first discovered CWD in Tennessee in 2018. That's the black font. The red font is the rule as submitted in July. And then the green font is the requested amendments.
Okay. Remind everybody, so this begins on the third page of the handout.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
I didn't think to bring a copy up here. I'm sorry.
You're good.
So yes, page 3, the first 2 pages are the original rule that is currently in force now. Beginning on page 3 is the black text is the original rule that's currently in force. The red text is the changes that we submitted or filed in July. And then the green and bold indicates the requested amendments to what was filed in July.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. The chair will move now for discussion from the commission. Commissioner Cox.
Stephanie, there's nothing about season changes in here.
That's correct. This
Okay.
is only affecting carcass transport and feeding. That's correct.
So I'm thinking about how the hunters interpret all of this and how this is to be dispensed to them and because and we've talked before how confusing these are for positive counties and the counties next door. And when do the season changes kick into a positive county?
So the season changes are set during the season setting process biannually. And we are actually trying to simplify those as well and really try and distinguish the difference between the carcass transport and feeding regulations and hunting regulations. This is the first step in that process. So simplifying carcass transport and feeding is entirely separate from the hunting regulations.
Right.
And so those changes where we are attempting to simplify and also improve our management of deer across the state, just our entire system of deer management, those will be coming about during the season setting process in the future. And we'll be providing a lot of public education about those changes as they come. But it is, at this time, these changes are simply for carcass transport and feeding.
So in the hunting guide, we'll have 2 separate maps. We'll have a map of the transportation feeding, and then we'll have another one that's got the CWD seasons.
That's correct.
So they can tell easily. Okay.
Yeah. And I will say that it will be a simpler map. It may not be the gray hashing you see here, but it will be a much simpler map than the blue and the yellow and the red and the X's and the checks and all that kind of thing. There's no restriction on carcass transport within the hashed or outside of the hashed. You just can't go between the two. And there's no feeding in the hashed area.
Right. Okay. Well, I just want a clarification. So
Thank you.
Okay, I have several comments. Commissioner Granberry? No. Get Chip.
Stephanie, this is what I was going to ask about. You talk about any permitted waste management company, TWRA staff, TWRA contractors. What about taxidermists? What about processors? What about an individual if they want to take their carcass to our incinerator in Jackson?
No, that's not permitted. Well, let me change this. We are expressly and explicitly allowing transport by these groups because we know that they have in place mechanisms to ensure safe transport. For individuals, hunters, taxidermists, processors, they can always bring it to the Jackson facility simply because it's located within the CWD management zone, and anything from across the state could be brought into the CWD management zone. And anything within the CWD management zone can be moved within that CWD management zone. So there's no restriction for anyone across the state as an individual to bring it to Jackson.
Should we say that on the, because it just sort of limits to 3 different groups. It doesn't talk about an individual or a taxidermist or a processor. And to me, they're going to be the ones that have a larger quantity that respect the processors.
I don't object to that, but I think that it's covered within the rule because we expressly create the management zone and say that carcasses can be transported within the management zone.
We're spending a lot of money on this facility in Jackson and we want it to be utilized.
Absolutely, yes. So there is no restriction whatsoever against bringing carcasses into the CWD management zone, but we'll make sure that we put verbiage in the hunting guide to clarify that.
Thank you.
Joe Benedict.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Yes, sir.
Is that on? Joe Benedict, Wildlife Chief. Steph, if you last slide with the proposed as amended, and this is just a clarification. Commissioner Grammer, I apologize. There's a couple of words missing here. So number 2 there, where we explicitly allow transport by those entities, including the agency, that transport is outside. So hunters can, if you could go back to that map, Steph, that transport is outside of the zone. So hunters can, if you could go back to that map, Steph, hunters within that shaded area can or come to our facility in Jackson. The agency may want to, we toured Oak Ridge, they have an alkaline digester. We may want to move things over there for a research project or something. So we failed to include that in our previous CW rules. We wanted to add that in there in case the agency wanted to move carcass parts outside of that zone. We have a wildlife vet that's permitted to handle pre-owned material. We may want to move that at some point. And so the clarification, that piece that we missed is the exportation that we're being allowed is outside of that zone.
And that makes it evergreen across the state as well. If we have future detections and we need to take things, say Knox County to, if there's a CWD management zone that's outside the current one, this would allow us to transport it specifically for disposal.
You know, speaking for Commissioner Cox, I think the simpler this is, the better. And if whatever wordsmithing we need to do in the hunting guide or wherever to make it simple to understand that if you're a hunter, or if you're a taxidermist, we almost beg you, bring it to this incinerator because we know that's the only way to rid the prions by the incineration.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We had some questions. Commissioner Saltzman.
Yeah, mine was similar with the processors too. I think I read it like Commissioner Granberry. I just like, okay, what about an individual processor? Obviously, I know this rule's about the map and verbiage. Is there any other additional cost for the processor or the hunter in this? It's all free. They know that. They don't think there's any cost bringing it to the incinerator?
That isn't addressed in the rule at all, but no, there's no cost.
Do they know that?
I would, we will make sure that when the crematory is functioning and the work base is operational, make sure that information.
We represent the government, so we assume it costs something. So
point. Yeah.
I would want the hunters to know that not only this is something we want them to do,
Mhm.
that it's free and it's easy, and we want them to do this.
I think that's a great point. We have been looking so closely at the logistics and sort of that end goal. We haven't thought, I'll be honest, we haven't thought very much about what communication needs to happen. So thank you for that.
Definitely want to support our processors through this management change. Yes, Commissioner Butt.
So are we voting on the rule as amended? Is that what I understand?
Yes, amended rule as presented.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So I've spoken with many stakeholders, most if not all, particularly the Department of Ag and State Veterinarian's Office, and they are happy with our management approach. And so I'm satisfied with what we're doing here. So
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, concerns? Commissioner Wright, did you have your, I didn't know if you had a question.
No, just a comment. I think it greatly simplifies things for hunters, and it facilitates transportation to taxidermists and to processors. And, you know, we started off with a great system that was fairly simple because we had just a few counties, and it became really complex. So we're getting to where we need to be with this. So I'm very thankful. Thanks for your work.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Saltzman. Thank you, Commissioner Wright.
One more quick question. If I'm in Lawrence County and I kill a deer and I take it to Wayne County for a processor, okay, all good? If I'm in Wayne County, I kill a deer, take it to Lawrence County to process. I
No.
got that.
Okay.
But it's going to be, I think our officers need to be ready for a lot of confusion, because I guarantee you, I'm not a huge deer hunter. I ain't checking that map before I go. That's not on my list. So I don't know how y'all are thinking about that, but I got a lot of family down there, and they're going to call me. So let's stop that call before it happens.
This is a real struggle, and you know, the states that have had it for 30 years are really deregulating that, because it's spread across wide expanses across the entire state. And we really are trying to limit the human movement of prions and at the same time try and simplify it. So I will say that this is much simpler than most of our neighbors, and certainly the states where it's confined to a small area. It's not ideal, but this truly is the simplest that we've worked really hard on how to simplify it, and we think this is our best answer now. I do want to just clarify one thing real quick, is that this will not be going, if it is approved, this will not be going into effect until next season. This will not be going into effect right now. So there's no changes for this season. So the hunting guide and the website will still reflect that blue, yellow, red map.
Great.
Following up on Commissioner Saltzman, he said, or his question was, if I kill a deer in Lawrence County, can I take it to Wayne County to a processor and vice versa? It looks like to me that answer is no.
Anything can be brought into the CWD management zone.
But he said vice versa, you could take it from Wayne to Lawrence.
My understanding, and I apologize if I misunderstood, what I understood was he said that it was acceptable to bring it from Lawrence into Wayne, but that it was not acceptable to do it vice versa.
I misunderstood. I thought you said you could take it back and forth from Wayne to Lawrence, but
No, the point was that we need to make sure that we, especially on the line, you know, Perry, Humphrey, Houston, Stewart, there's a lot of crossover. There's not that many processors like there used to be. There's a lot of people that are going to cross county lines. This is not what they're going to think about when they're deer hunting. So shockingly, education and communication are going to be very important to this. And I want to make sure our officers are ready for a lot of early confusion on this. And that was kind of the main point, Commissioner. But
I just misunderstood your question. I thought you said you could do it freely either way, and I want to make sure.
We do have 4 public meetings, one of which was in Wayne County during September, to educate hunters on the new regulations that are going into effect. So across the entire CWD management zone in West Tennessee for education. There's also information on the website and on social.
Any more questions from the
Yeah,
commissioners?
so Stephanie, to add to the confusion.
Even
So if I'm Chip's great nephew and I'm hunting in Wayne County and I shoot a deer and the processor is in Lawrence County and I take the deer to Lawrence County, I don't know if it's positive or negative when I shoot it. So you take it, then you get it over there and you find out it's positive. So I guess it's back to the education. Can you even move a deer till you know? How does that process work?
So you can only take approved parts out of the CWD management zones as it stands. And I'll just show you real quick. You can move any of the approved parts, CWD management zone. But otherwise, a whole carcass, and this is consistent with how it's been since the beginning. There's no change to what parts can or can't be moved. We've made a much larger area included. So we're actually creating more opportunity for hunters to take it to different processors and taxidermists.
Great. Okay. This time I'd like to ask for any public comment. Anyone? Tony, you're smiling. Got a comment? Okay. I have a motion to approve amended rule as presented. Okay. Tommy Woods, do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Butt. Danette, please have a roll call vote and please remind everybody to have their microphones on.
Jimmy Granberry,
Yes.
Tommy Woods,
Yes.
Monty Baloo, Stan Butts,
Yes.
Wally Childress,
Yes.
Bill Cox, Chris Devaney,
Yes.
Chris Saltzman,
Or Chip Saltzman, yes.
Chip, I'm sorry,
Him too. Him too.
Steve Jones, Brian McLaren, Kent Woods, Hank Wright,
Yes.
Angie Box.
Yes. Commissioner Claren went to the restroom, so I guess he just missed the vote.
I'm sorry, what?
And Monty. Great. Thank you so much, Danette. Okay. This concludes the rule hearing. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for the clarity and the depth time you've gone into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you
I
very
appreciate
much.
that. Okay. I'm going to take about a 10-minute break before we move on to retention recruitment. So everybody be back, please, at 10:05. Bill Cox. Be back at 10:05.
Next story is about the National Archery in the Schools program.
Today we're at the Miller Coliseum in Murfreesboro. And this is our 12th annual Tennessee State National Archery in the School program tournament. This year we've got almost 400 schools across the state in the program. And this year we have 131 teams participating. We'll have somewhere around 2,000 kids. Mainly it's made for 4th through 12th grade. It's made to be taught in school during school hours. So that way every kid will get a chance to at least try it. That's what we're trying to do. But then afterwards, a lot of the teachers, once they're teaching it during school hours, a lot of them will start an archery club afterwards. Most of our top shooters will shoot somewhere around 290, 293. Probably the average for most of them that's been in the program for a couple of years, they're shooting in the 260s, 270s pretty regularly. Yeah, it's pretty amazing to see what we can do with just, like you said, just the plain shooting instinctive.
This first 5 arrows is practice only.
Get both.
This is an IBO 3D range, and it's another opportunity for the kids to be involved in archery.
This is 3D. It's connected with NASP. They've been doing it right now for about 3 years, and it's called the NASP IBO, which is the International Bowhunter Organization. But it's a 3D shoot where they're shooting at the animals.
It also encourages them to get outside with archery and to continue beyond just the gym or just the arena, to go out and try bow hunting. Something they can do with their family as well. So it's exciting, it's fun.
Follow the rules, score like you're supposed to, and be fair and consistent. Got me?
The way they can really get involved in this program, they can contact either me or Matt, Claire, either one, and they can get a teacher that's really involved that wants to get trained. Very simple to teach. It's not very difficult at all. The startup kit to get a kit to get it started is about $3,000. We have some grant money available to the schools. We got about $1,500 help them get started. So we just got to get a teacher that's would like to do it, get interested in it, come to one of our trainings that we put on. The training's free. Go back to their school, get their equipment, and they can start the program.
They get everything out of it. They learn all life lessons, fairness, acceptance, inclusion of everybody, because anybody can shoot archery. Learn to be a team. They learn how to be themselves, and they learn confidence in themselves.
It's a level playing field. I mean, but there's three different. We've got an elementary division, we have a middle division, and we have a high school division. But they're competing as a team and also as individuals as well. Yeah, and everybody's shooting the same bow, everybody's shooting the same arrow, everybody's using the same equipment. They're going to shoot 30 arrows, 15 arrows from 10 meters, and they're going to shoot 15 arrows from 15 meters. And then the total score that you could get, the best you get would be a 300. We'll tally it up. We'll pick the best top 3 teams in each division, and then we'll also give the top 5 individuals, male and female, in each division.
Now let's take a look at sturgeon in Tennessee.
We're sampling for lake sturgeon. We've started from ground zero with these fish. Yeah, unlike other fish, these fish are very long-lived. The oldest fish that has been recorded was over 150 years old. They can grow to lengths of 8 feet and weigh up to 300 pounds. Most of our stocking occurs on the Tennessee River above Fort Loudoun Reservoir, and then we also stock some fish over here into the Cumberland system, and those are stocked in Old Hickory and Cordell Hull reservoirs. And then naturally these fish move down through the systems. We found fish in the Tennessee River as far down as Gunnersville Reservoir. They're a little different than some of the sport fish that we traditionally sample for. And our traditional method, gill nets and electrofishing and trap nets just seem, they don't well. Isn't there more of a solitary fish? They're usually in the deeper water. They come up onto the flats and feed, gathering up in these deep holes. So they concentrate and they're feeding at the same time. So it makes it a little easier for us to catch them, but still in a reservoir, there's a lot of places for them to be, and there's not a whole lot of fish out there. These are trot lines, just like our sport fish anglers can utilize and our commercial fishermen can utilize to capture fish here in the state of Tennessee. Our trot lines usually consist of a main line. We usually use 50 hooks. We standardize our lines with 50 hooks. The line itself is around 400 feet long, and we set from the navigational markers, usually 10 to 12 feet out into the channel. And we can drop them as deep as 50, 60 feet. And we've caught sturgeon in 50, 60 feet of water. This far, we're up a few fish. Still not huge numbers of fish, but each fish lets us know a little more about how the population's doing. Yeah, this could be one of our largest sport fish. There's sturgeon fisheries out in Washington and Oregon for the white sturgeon, where they catch 10 and 12 feet long sturgeon, and they're allowed to catch one a year. we would love to restore this fish to the sport fish level here in Tennessee. This is just one way we collect data on sturgeon. We've had a very active angler catch reporting system. We've had over 350 angler reports of sturgeon being caught and released here in the state of Tennessee, both in the Tennessee and the Cumberland River system. If an angler catches one, simply take a picture and call into TWRA, or you can even email TWRA now. We've got an email set up, sturgeon.reports@tn.gov, where they can just take a picture, email it in with their name and address, phone number, where they caught the fish. Kind of a flat there, and it drops into that hole. It helps guide our sampling. We go back out to some of these areas where we have big catches of fish, and we found several hot spots on the Tennessee River just by angler report. These fish have been part of the stocking program where we stock them at 8 inches long, and we have these fish marked in several different ways. We remove some scutes. That's the bony plates on the side of the fish. We remove those before we stock them, so we have a pattern, and we move down the side of the fish. We'll alternate those, and it indicates the year that those fish are stocked. Most of the fish we're catching out here is anywhere from 18 to 54 inches long, and that just indicates that these fish are growing. They're doing very well in this river system. If we could fish out here today, we'll put a pit tag in that fish. It's the same tag that they put in dogs and cats for people to identify their pets. And then that will tell us, that gives that fish an individual number. If we recapture that fish in a couple of years, we'll know how much that fish has grown, where that fish has moved to from the previous capture, if it stayed in the same area. So we gain a lot of information on each and every fish that we catch out here. This fish, we gain a lot of information on each and every fish that we catch out here. This fish kind of looks like a dinosaur. This is a very ancient looking fish. Has almost a leathery skin to it, much tougher looking than you would find on a catfish. And then they have bony plates that go down the side and down the back of the fish that serve as protection. People can catch these fish now, and pictures experience catching a really trophy type fish, and all they have to do is release it. Have that picture, and then if they report it to TWRA, we'll issue them a certificate. So they've caught at least a lake sturgeon in the state of Tennessee, and it would be right there with the 350 anglers that have done this out of the thousands of anglers that we have in the state of Tennessee. So it's still a very unique experience and something to really value as a trophy.
Pollinator plot.
Hey, we're at the Ellington Agricultural Center complex in Davidson County off of Edmondson Pike. What we're doing here is getting rid of fescue and some other weeds, if you will, and trying to replace it with some pollinator seed so that this spring we'll get flowers for the pollinators to feed on. What we did is we came in here previously and we sprayed it so that we could kill it, so that it would burn. And what the fire does is it does several things. One, the seed's not going to do any good if we sow it and it lands on top of the vegetation. It's going to sprout. So we have to get it down to bare soil. Also, when we go ahead and burn, a lot of the nutrients from the ashes will get into the soil much quicker than if we waited for the vegetation to rot down. So you're actually fertilizing. You're also able to get the seed to the soil, and if sunlight gets to the soil where the seed is, then it can germinate. Otherwise, the seed will just sit there. It won't do anybody any good. With the decrease in butterflies and bees, which are our pollinators, I don't know that people realize it, but we don't eat without those creatures. Well, pollinators, they're the ones that they go from flower to flower. They pollinate the flower so that those flowers can produce more seed to produce more flowers. But in the same respect, things like corn, soybeans, anything that we eat vegetable-wise has to be pollinated too to produce a fruit. And we think, well, I don't eat a lot of vegetables, I just chicken and well, chickens eat things that pollinators pollinate, cows, different things like that. So everything comes back to, if it wasn't for the pollinators pollinating the plants so that they could produce the food, then none of us would eat. Animals wouldn't eat, we wouldn't eat. And so it's very important. And with the increase in buildings and pavement and everything like that, we're reducing the amount of areas for pollinators. And that's why a lot of people have their own gardens at home, flower gardens, to try to increase the pollinators.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lawrence, just letting you know that the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency supports itself and manages all of the state's wildlife with the dollars invested by hunters and fishermen when they buy licenses. If you've never bought a license, but appreciate the abundant wildlife we enjoy in this state, I encourage you to do it. Start with the Type 01. It's a great investment in Tennessee wildlife. Learn more at tnwildlife.org.
Buy your license today at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.
To now call on Ashley Tone with Tennessee Wildlife Federation.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here today. And wanted to give a quick thank you to Mr. Sanders with NRA for his continued support as well. It was a pleasure meeting you and all of your support. This program would not exist without the support of the agency and the commission. So, for those not familiar with the Tennessee Scholastic Target Program, or Tennessee SCTP as we call it, it was designed to promote shooting sports, give youth an introduction, and promote proper firearm handling, teach responsibility, leadership, and healthy competition. But before I get too far into the competition or into the presentation, I want to show you guys a brief video about what our program really does for our competitors.
I didn't realize how many friends that I would make through this sport.
I like the program most because it helps kids get out and be sociable. I mean, I've got friends from multiple states that I wouldn't have made if I wouldn't have been in this program.
We had no idea what we were getting into when we joined, but the best we've ever done. Every year is supportive. We're all good friends. We don't care about misses as much as just having a good time and being safe.
I had never found a sport or like a group sport that I was really like, oh, these are my people. But when I got into trap, I was like, I know I'm where I'm supposed to be.
It's a major adrenaline rush. I remember my first 25 straight. I couldn't even formulate a sentence. I couldn't stand up. I was shaking so bad. It's like nothing I've ever felt.
One of the things I love about this sport is there's no body type. I mean, you can have an 80-pound girl standing next to a guy that's 215, 6'4", and she can just smoke it.
The kids have been doing a lot of talking, so the sport is really starting to grow right now.
We started the program with just a few students and have grown to well over 50 students that are involved in our program, 4th grade through 12th grade.
You can just see that sense of pride as they're walking down the hallway. I'm a part of something. And I think a lot of our teens today, they want community, and the trap team gives them that. We brag about this program. This is a very positive way for our kids to be involved in an activity that is safe, productive, and positive, and it's something that's not just non-negotiable. It's going to probably be safe, and they are.
The confidence that they've been built is incredible. And me being a mom with my son on the team, I got to live it and see face to face how it's impacted. Safety skills, confidence, they just enjoyed it. It's been incredible for the kids.
It's amazing to see the transformations of these young kids when they come out. They're shy and they won't look you in the eye, and you get up, they don't know how to hold the gun, they're nervous, and within a couple practices, they go from hitting 1 or 2 out of 25 to 15 or 16 really quick, and then their confidence grows. And within a year, you don't even recognize the kids anymore. They're a totally different person and shooter.
It's just a super fun way to get kids involved outdoors, and it's a lifelong hobby that you can participate until you're 99 years old. So it's a fantastic way to get kids involved in something.
It's something that you can get as involved in as you want. If you just want to go out on the weekend and shoot with your buddies, that's great. But if you also want to compete on the national level and go to sport every year and be as competitive as you can be that too.
I would 1,000% recommend it to anyone who is interested, even in the slightest. I love it.
If I had to go to another school that didn't have it, that'd be one of the first things I'd try to bring in is trap. It is a vital part of our athletic department.
My advice to anyone wanting to start a team would be to start young. Start with the young kids, get some parents, get more than one, and then hone them and train them how you want them to represent your school, what your values are. This is us, this is not us kind of thing, and then communicate that to the kids and then grow it slowly from the ground up. And then in a few years, you're going to have a lot of kids come through.
It's an incredible resource we have in Tennessee with Tennessee Wildlife Federation, and they were great to help hold. I mean, once I found the sponsors and the volunteers, They did everything for us, and it was great. It made a tremendous difference for the school. Kids, this year we actually have more kids applying for the team, so it's really growing. So if I can do it, everybody can do it. Y'all need to just join the fun. It's awesome.
So I'm sure that you guys saw some familiar faces in that video. Thank you, Chairwoman Box, for being a part of that production. And you can also see that there are two critical pathways for this program to succeed. The first is access to shooting ranges, which the commission and the agency have done an excellent job providing our teams and our athletes across the state. But the second is high quality coaches who are the backbone of this program. But before I get too far into this video, I want to show you guys or tell you guys a short story about one of the athletes that you just saw in this video. So this athlete had big dreams of playing college softball and was on the right track to receive several Division I scholarship offers until her junior year, a career-ending injury devastated all of her plans. But with the helping and encouragement from her coaches, she found a new sport to focus on through shooting sports. She had been a part of her high school strap team since her freshman year, just as a way to seem more well-rounded on her college applications, but never considered pursuing it past graduation. Fast forward to 1 year later, after countless hours spent on the range practicing, one shooting team in the nation at Lindenwood University, the Alabama football of shooting sports, if you will, national championship wins. After graduation, she stuck around in Missouri to be a graduate assistant coach on the team while she pursued her master's degree and part of her 5th championship. This athlete is here with us today, standing at the podium as the new manager of the Tennessee SCTP. Allowed me to find my passion, pay for my education, pursue the opportunity to give back to the program that provided me with so many opportunities. Now, my story is not that unique. We have dozens of athletes in our program every year that go far beyond what they thought their potential was because of their coaches, like Commissioner McLaren, who are all volunteers, dedicate so much time and effort into these athletes. They are the of this program. They are the reason our athletes go from barely being able to hold up a shotgun to winning their first trophy at our state championships. They have the potential to impact dozens of lives during their time as a coach. Now, when I was an athlete in this program, the youngest competitors were beyond excited to hit just half of the targets they shot at on that day. Now we have athletes like Chloe Chalinson, who at the age of 10 is the youngest competitor in history to shoot a perfect score of 100 in a trap competition. Now, this is a major milestone for any competitive clay shooter, but it's more amazing that someone this young had the attention span to not miss a single target in an entire day. We also have athletes who are going far beyond Tennessee SCTP and competing at a worldwide level. 2021 Amateur Trap Shooting Association World Clay Target Championship, after hitting 575 targets in a row, beating out over 1,800 competitors, many of whom have been shooting longer. Chloe, is because the three of us have something in common. We all wore the same jersey and had the same coach. Since 2007, Rob Mathis has coached over 200 athletes wearing the MTCS trap jersey, but his impact goes far beyond his own team. He wrote a book, The New Trap Shooter Primer, to introduce everyone to shooting. He's also spent many years teaching hunter ed in Middle Tennessee. Today,
I don't like seeing myself get fatter as I go across. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, Ashley. I know she'll be a great asset to the program, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy to represent those of you that volunteer in many different capacities. We all do it because we love it, I'm sure, because we're passionate about it, and we enjoy winning. And I enjoy these individual accomplishments. Perhaps I'm I feel kind of most proud of the opportunity that this program gives us to influence not just a new generation of sportsmen, the people actually pulling the triggers, but their families and friends who follow them to the trap field and to the competitions. As a hunter ed instructor, I'm familiar with the idea that the way hunters act and the ethics that they have influence the public perception about hunting. Same thing's true with gun rights, with gun ownership. How people interact with, shooters or people who are passionate about the shooting sports goes a long way to protecting legislatively those things that we all enjoy and take for granted. We grew up, or at least I assume that most everybody in here grew up in a time when gun ownership and responsible gun handling was just kind of a normal part of our lifestyle. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. About 11 or 12 years ago, I had a parent meeting at school, and a family attended with a young 4th grade boy. And after it was over, the dad came up to me and said, "My son is interested in participation, but I just got to tell you, I don't know a thing about guns." And in talking to him, he said, he clarified. He said, "Actually, guns weren't allowed in my house growing up." And I'm, really, this is kind of nervous in this situation. I said, "Well, just, come out. Don't obviously feel obligated to bring anything. We'll take care of everything. And let me introduce you to it." After a couple of those sessions, he decided he wanted to pursue it and asked me if I would help him buy their first gun. And I'll never forget it. We ordered a gun. I went with them to pick it up because they'd never filled out an ATF form or anything. And it was the dad. The mom had stayed home. And he was in the process of checking out, had already completed all the background check and everything. And his phone rang and he answers it. And I'm standing right next to him, and I could hear her rather, because he had the volume turned up loud enough. And she said, "Did you get it? Did you get it?" And he said, "Well, we're paying for it right now." She said, "Is it loaded? Is it loaded?" And we kind of take for granted, that of course it was in a box taken apart. It was a little Beretta semi-auto. But that family went on to participate all the way through high school. That I haven't kept up with him in a couple of years. He's approaching graduating from college now, but they spent thousands of dollars on firearms before it was over with. But that's just such an important opportunity we have to, I guess, include people in our overall community. So that family and others just like them are examples of not just the participants in this activity, but all of those tangential relationships and opportunities we have to influence them. So I thank you for your leadership. I really thank you for your support. And I want you to know that the support it provides not only helps these individual participants, but also tens of thousands of parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and family members who may not be the ones participating, but now they have a more favorable view of the shooting sport. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rob. Now, Rob is just one coach on one team that we have here in Tennessee. Imagine the impact that our nearly 450 coaches across our 85 teams statewide have on our over 1,600 athletes participating in our program this season. Now, most of these coaches participate just because they have a child on the team, and they'll continue to be a coach until their kid ages out or stops participating. But we have many coaches like Rob who continue to put forth time and effort into this sport long after their children graduate because they're passionate about this sport. They're the ones that cause the ripple effect and recruit even more coaches and athletes to continue fueling this program. They put in countless hours to help improve scores and build confidence. This year, our coaches have put in well over 2,000 volunteer hours, which we heard earlier about how important that is in terms of funding between practices and competition. But the growth that we've experienced over the past 21 years that our program has been thriving should be credited to our coaches. Now, out of the 20.4 million Americans who enjoy target shooting and frequent shooting ranges, 10 million participate in clay target sports. Their purchases of shotguns, ammunition, and other shooting sports gear generate over $17 billion back to the national economy on a yearly basis, trickling right into those Pittman-Robertson dollars that Mr. Churchborn talked about earlier. This year, Tennessee received over $31.9 million to be put into program funding and range development. This allows partnerships with the TWRA and Tennessee Wildlife Federation to be possible to fund Tennessee Scholastic Clay Target Program and other R3 programs in our state. Because we've made shooting sports such a priority in our state, Tennessee will continue to reap the benefits for years to come. According to a study from Responsive Management and Mark Duda, 41% of target shooters also hunt, generating license sales back into the state and also contributing to wildlife conservation. Other states who have not put forth effort in building shooting and hunting programs like we have are not going to see the same benefits that we do. Our program provides a network of teams that support a culture of firearm safety and shine a positive light on recreational firearm use outside of the negative stories that we continue to see every single day in the media. They harbor a community of dedicated volunteer coaches that continue to pass on knowledge, safety skills, and passion to our athletes. Since 2003, we have had over 1,000 coaches volunteer to be a part of our program, and over 13,000 athletes participate. But our reach goes far beyond them by way of their friends and family. Over 78,000 individuals have been made aware of this program and the opportunities that it provides the kids that participate. And these individuals help make up the clay shooting community in Tennessee, who participate in other shooting sports organizations, frequent ranges, purchase shooting sports equipment at Tennessee retailers, and participate in sporting clays fundraisers for charity organizations. Now, this is a full circle that funnels straight back in to those 10 million Americans that participate in this sport, fueling the cycle and allowing us to continue working hard to develop these ranges and these programs. But your sustained funding and the range capacity that you've provided in the state allows us to contribute on a nationwide level. I want to thank you all for your continued support and allowing us to give a quick update. And I know I've covered a lot between the presentation and the stories. So I've created a folder for each of you with some highlights that Taylor is going to be passing out. But our combined efforts have laid the groundwork for Tennessee SCTP to be passed down to the next generation of clay target enthusiasts and outdoors men and women. I'd also like to invite all of you to our state championships that happen every June at the Nashville Gun Club. It's truly hard to visualize the impact that this program has on our participants until you see it firsthand. I can tell you there's nothing like the excitement of a packed shooting range full of families and coaches that were there to support these young men and women who are passionate about shooting sports. I'll now open the floor up to questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. That was a wonderful presentation. I appreciate that. Not because I was in it, but it was just a great presentation.
Oh, yeah.
And every year, JW, it's wonderful. You seem to bring an athlete every time. And it's usually I'm choking back on the tears because it started all back from Emily Ferguson back at Ducks Unlimited. And she spoke. And I thought, okay, I got to do this. How do I do this? And you all were key, and it was wonderful. I called JW. I said, "Okay, what do I do?" He said, "All right, I'll tell you." And it's been a fantastic program at USJ in Jackson, Tennessee. It's continuing to grow, and NRA also is fantastic on helping with the grant. Tony Sanders at that time was on the commission, and we got a great grant the first year as a new team. And so there's a lot of people out there to help if you want to start a team in your school, in your local area. So thank you all for everything you do. I appreciate that. Are there any questions? Didn't mean to cut everybody off.
I've got a comment if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I know y'all get tired of hearing about history, but I was here when y'all started this program. And And I went to a few of these shoots in Memphis and Nashville and whatever, and to see children that had physical disabilities that couldn't participate in any other sport, and children that stood up out of a wheelchair that had appeared to be spina bifida or some debilitating physical problem to stand on the line and shoot. The cutest little fellas and girls, that just melt your heart to watch them. So it's a great program for the kids that are not football players and baseball players, and it's just fabulous. I have a question. I noticed Memphis and Nashville have multiple teams in counties. I don't see Chattanooga, Knoxville, and Johnson City and Bristol. And are there no practice? Ashley, or you and Mike or somebody, are there no shooting ranges, practice facilities, or what's the reason for that? Is that
Yes, that's a great question, and you kind of answer it yourself. We're really lacking the range capacity in those areas. There used to be a range in the Chattanooga area, and we had a lot of teams in the Chattanooga area. And when that one range closed, it devastated that entire area. But Mr. Sanders has a comment as well with that.
Tony Sanders from Chattanooga. I was going to keep my mouth shut here today, but this is something that I'm really passionate about. To answer your question, we had one range, 9 shooting teams. That range decided to go a different route. There is no shooting facility in Chattanooga that's not private. So there's no place for kids to shoot. As chairman of the Tennessee Friends of NRA, we've raised about $8 million to support this. And the biggest thing we need is a range. And when I was a commissioner, I tried to get a range, and we haven't been able to do it. So that's the problem. And we've lost all of our teams in Chattanooga.
you just can't find the place or the people that would run it and that kind of thing?
There's some political opposition to a range that was trying to open up, which is the one that everybody knows up here as Dead Zero, just not far from here. But we just don't have any place to put it. There's land, but we haven't had the support to get it done. And I've worked with Matt Cleary for the last 10 years trying to do it. And we just haven't been able to find the spot. But that's what we need. We had 8 or 9 teams when they shut down. And as the Friends of NRA, the way our program works, we donate money for ammunition, but we also buy a lot of guns, as Angie mentioned. And I had to go around and pick up all those guns because those guns remain the property of the Friends of NRA. And I went, and at one point I had 30-something guns. I gave quite a few of them to Commissioner McLaren's team. But it's one of those things that it's just having the facilities to do it. And it's kind of sad that a city like Chattanooga, which needs this, doesn't have anything like that in our area. So
the city and county leadership are not interested.
They haven't been as interested. So, and I mean, we tried to put them well outside of the city, but it's just been tough.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanders. Chris Devaney, I think you have a homework assignment, possibly.
I'm going to be talking to former Commissioner Sanders after this, for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner Sanders, for those comments. It's helpful. Thank you. Any more comments or suggestions? All right. Oh, Coach McLaren.
I was trying to be quiet, but I couldn't. I was a coach before I became a commissioner, and we started a small team. Actually, you saw our range on the video there. We do not have a range anywhere near us, so we went into a friend's hayfield and built our own range, and that's where we practice. And it has grown some over the years, and it is fluctuated with our participants, but we have gone a lot of places. We have traveled a lot. We've been to Colorado, Illinois, Ohio, all with Texas, all with shooting. And like you say, not everybody's a football player. Not everybody's a basketball player. And actually, we even have some football players who shoot on our team. And you can retrain football players. They can be good athletes. But we've had the ability to go a lot of places, see a lot of growth with these kids, and it's done a lot for our family, our community, to have this team. So thank you to SCTP for helping us get started, and because we wouldn't have had the ability to do what we did without you. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Tennessee Bar Federation. All right. We have Mr. Ken Tarkington, please, for the Budget Committee with a financial report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be reporting on the month of July. And Commissioners, Chairman Cox pointed this out, that there is a difference between what is up on the screen and what's on your iPad. So I apologize for it. What's on your iPad is a spreadsheet I use for balancing balances, fund balances. And apparently I sent the wrong one to be loaded. We send two different formats. But the one I'm reporting on is actually on the screen. If you could look at that, perhaps it may reduce some confusion. At the top or at the second slide, boating fund for reporting through July, the registration income is approximately $79,000 above the estimated or projected amount for the year. And the expense portion of the boating fund, we're at approximately 4% of the current year's allotment. On the next slide, the wildlife slide, revenue is down from projection approximately $119,000, and the expense to budget is about 2.8% of the annual allotment. At the bottom, or at the next slide on the wetlands acquisition fund, the balance is $18,007. And if you notice, there's a bracketed figure there. I'll try to make that simple. It's an accrued liability, an accounting term, which means the expense was paid during this fiscal year, but put in last fiscal year. So an offsetting credit resumes in this fiscal year. Was that plain enough? Is it confusing enough?
I'll have to ask Chairman Cox.
Why don't you try again? No, I asked the question earlier and called Tim. He explained that it was for expenses in previous months for appraisals and other fees that were associated with some of the land they're looking to purchase. Is that right?
That's correct. You'd make a great bean counter,
yeah,
Commissioner. Okay, the next slide is the Treasury investment that we have and balances. And if you notice at the bottom of the page, we're now above 1%, 1.38. I will say that I have August SPIF earnings, which is the state pool investment fund, and it's almost 2%. So that's good. The bad thing is we're probably going to see those reserve balance, not the reserve balances, but the Treasury investment decline somewhat in value as inflation takes hold. Are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chairman, I had talked to our new business director, Fiss, about having a budget conference call or Zoom meeting to discuss our investment account and what we're going to do about if we're going to, and if we do, what our strategy is. So at some point, we're going to have probably a full commission Zoom call whenever Frank can schedule it to talk about that. Because we haven't done anything about moving any of that money.
The endowment lifetime license? Yes, sir.
Is that a reference to a potential trust fund?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for addressing that, Commissioner Cox. So we'll maybe look to do that for the next meeting.
Yeah, we're going to try to schedule that as soon as we can get that going.
Okay. Thank you so much. Are any other comments or questions on the budget? Okay.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
Chair.
Ken. Appreciate you. Okay. I have a special guest here that has waited patiently all day that was going to speak yesterday, and she's here today. So I'd like to call up to the microphone Andrea White, the American Canoe Association.
Thank you, Chairwoman Box. You have been so gracious as to allow me to speak today. I really do appreciate that. I am going to take maybe 3.5 or 4 minutes because I want to talk on a couple of topics, and one of them is to brag on the agency. And I think it's important for y'all to know some things that maybe haven't been communicated up the ladder. I will do it because I believe in bragging on people doing good things. You know, I want to. I have my glasses on. I want to first really highlight for the moment, we've had several situations where the American Canoe Association, which is known as the national accrediting body for paddle sports education, and is the gold standard for paddle sports education, where we have partnered with your agency over the years, and it's been very successful. I worked with Betsy Woods and Glenn Moates a couple of years ago. We gave a lake and class 1 safety and rescue training to 16 wildlife officers. That's what we were asked to do because that's the role those officers serve. I tell you what, those officers were game for everything we threw at them. We did it at Buffalo Ridge Refuge. It was an excellent class. They were in it to win it. They wanted more. And I know I've heard it from Commissioner Butt, and he spoke with my colleague Hunter yesterday about the possibility of doing a full first responder training. If y'all want that, we can put that together for you in a heartbeat. Those officers were great, and I loved working with them. We have also continued to work with Betsy. We work with Betsy all the times on boat safety issues. I've trained a number of her summer interns that she put out on the Wear It boats. So we've been working together for years. And we're currently working with Slate Ryder, with Colonel Ryder's son, on these new paddle sports sergeants. Betsy had recommended there's a particular line of training that we do where we're certifying new instructors in kind of the gold standard of how to spread this knowledge. And we want those paddle sports safety, the sergeants who are going to be talking to outfitters to have their facts straight and to know the gold standard of the way to talk about these things so that they can do a really good job for the people of Tennessee. They're on the front lines. So we're currently working on trying to help y'all get those certifications and with the national standard for the certifying body. But there's other things that we've been doing together. And I don't think y'all know, as recently as this week, we're making national headlines in Paddling Magazine, which is a consumer magazine, and in Paddling Business Magazine, which is a trade magazine. The headline is Tennessee's leading the way in paddle sports education. And the reason is because of the entry-level safety and rescue education that we're doing, but also because Tennessee outdoors people they saw the need for a kayak angler safety curriculum. And they wrote it, and they got it certified by the national body. And when we launched it over Memorial Day weekend, Don Haas made sure we did it at Buffalo Ridge Refuge. And Tennessee State Parks and TWRA were joint credited as sponsors for that inaugural class. That is a national standard that's rolling out everywhere. And as recently as like this week, it's being shared. That article is being shared across Coast Guard social media sites, across the NASBLA weekly newsletter, because Tennessee is leading the way. Y'all need to be taking credit for that. That's something that we're doing. With kayak fishing being the fastest growing part of paddle sports, our worlds are continuing to overlap more and more and more. It's the same people, if not the same Christmas dinner table, right? So we've really got to treat each other as good neighbors and find all that common ground and take our wins, because we're helping keep our neighbors safe when we do that. So I wanted to take that extra moment to share our joint wins, because sometimes it's not comfortable when friends and neighbors disagree on something. And it's good to find the common ground and be able to smile and celebrate our wins together before we fight the more difficult challenges and make good policy, right? So one of the regulations that's been proposed is a change to the trot line regulation. Now, my friend, David Pope, is the guy that got caught in that trot line. And I've heard him talk about it, and I've read his sworn statement on it. And he is a lifelong whitewater boater with great skill, far above my pay grade, much better paddler than me. He's a first responder. He's been held at gunpoint while delivering medical services as a paramedic. And he told me, and he put in that sworn statement, that the thing he still has nightmares about is seeing that 3-inch hook on his life jacket in a whitewater river and knowing that that line that requires 250 pounds of force to break that line was about to hook him and hold him underwater in that current. And that's my friend. So we have a real life situation where we have user groups using the same body of water. And it's incumbent on us collectively, and I put myself in that as leaders, to find the common ground solutions. Now, we've worked really hard. I'll tell you quite honestly, my national leaders really wanted me to draft a bill and do something and advocate for banning trot lines. Now, I'm a Tennessean. I'm 5 generations native Tennessean. I knew that wasn't going to fly. That wasn't going to make any sense. So we took a very different tact with our local leadership. We kind of bucked the system a little bit. And we did the legislative research. And we looked at current trot line regulations in neighboring states. I don't believe that the proposal that you heard yesterday included any of that research. We looked at things that are working for fishermen in neighboring states. And they include things like making that line visible to other people on the river, whether that's with a high-vis flyer or a flotation. That includes not having it go bank to bank and not putting it on a limb line. That's what happened to David. It was on a limb line in the middle of the river. And it includes things like sinking it 3 feet under the water level. That's what they do in Georgia. The high-vis thing they do in North Carolina and South Carolina. We didn't try to come up with things out of thin air. We didn't try to come up with emotional things. We tried to come up with very practical solutions to sustain the rights of our friends and family who are fishermen, but also to make it so that these waterways are welcoming to all Tennesseans and to all of the people from out of state that come to support our local communities. We really, really think that there's room for improvement and there's room for common ground. And furthermore, if somebody cuts that line for a safety reason, we feel like there's room to have an indemnity clause in there for an affirmative defense if criminal charges are placed against them. Safety is safety. Y'all believe in safety. I know you do. And if somebody cuts that line for a safety reason, I think that there's room for us to find some common ground on that. So I'm really looking forward to having these conversations with you all over the next 2 or 3 months. I know Commissioner Woods, you've got lunch scheduled with Scott Fisher. He's one of the top 15 water safety educators in the nation. I would love to bring that kind of expert testimony to the entire commission so that we're really doing this in a way that's going to sustain the rights of the fishermen. I don't want to take any rights away from the fishermen. I got to go to Christmas dinner too. but do it in a way that's safe for everybody on the river. Those kids on those inner tubes, they don't need to run into a nearly invisible trot line that's on a limb with a hook that's going to hold them underwater the way David was scared of. And that's what we're looking at with the way the regulation is currently written. Now, I'm happy to share with you, if you haven't read it already, the transcript from the trial transcript from June 28th, when Judge Street advised the fisherman who set that trot line that in the future he needs to go above and beyond the regulations. Now, he was real even-handed. He told us what we needed to do too. And we're listening. And I can share with you, if you haven't seen it already, the letter that DA Baldwin, who filed the charges, wrote to say he was in support of the changes we're recommending. So we're not coming up with any of this out of thin air. We really, really want to find common ground with our friends and neighbors. And I'm very excited. Thank you for being so gracious to allow me to speak. I'm looking forward to these meetings. I want to bring solution-oriented data to the table so that we can sustain the rights of all Tennesseans to enjoy our wonderful outdoors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your partnership, working with the canoes and the kayakers. I believe that we'll be addressing that on the December meeting. Is that correct? Yes. Great. So we'll have plenty of discussion at that meeting once we vote. Okay.
See you in Memphis.
Okay, great. In Memphis, that's correct. All righty. Thank you so much. Do we have any public comment after Ms. Andrea? Questions from the commission?
One clarification.
Sure.
I just want to be very clear, and to my friend and neighbor right here, we have no concerns about the commercial fishing regulations. That's not our concern at all. That was not even brought up on the table. That we're purely talking about the sport regulations.
Okay, great. Thank you. All righty. No more comments from the commission? Okay, do we have any further business to attend to at this point? Or any questions from the director? Further comments?
No, ma'am. That's all, Madam Chairman.
Okay. We will meet we have 2 months off away. Y'all get a vacation from us. We will meet again in December at Ducks Unlimited. I think it's the 1st and the 2nd. Correct? Yes, in Memphis. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come to speak, for those who came in public. And thank you for all the staff again for the great food. And it's just been a great time. I love Fall Creek Falls. I think we're going to have new visitors coming since I've sent pictures. They said, hey, that looks great. I'm going to come out there and see the new facility. So a lot of excitement, and that's good. All right, great. Well, if there's no more business to attend to, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All right. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.